He overheard a conversation with my friend and found out about our monthly cheating parties. So my, male 47 husband and I, female 37, met at one of the Living Legends live performances, which was AI Green's Soul concert that was held in Orpheum Theater, LA, in the year 2020. He was sitting on a seat next to mine, so as we listened to the lovely soul music that Mr. Green was performing, we discussed how great he was and how his songs always find a way to connect to the heart. I mean, even if you were the person who didn't believe in love, but once you listened to AI Green's music, you would think again about finding love. Mike was a very smart, handsome, and funny man to be around. You know when you just connect with someone on the first day of seeing or meeting them? That was me and Mike. We just clicked, you know. We had a lot in common and our goals collided. He was that missing piece I've been looking for all those years. That time we were having a very great night. AI Green was and still is my favorite soul and R&B singer. To me, I think he will remain a legend no matter what. So when the concert was done, we went out together, still continuing with our discussions until he asked that we go to the nearest opened restaurant to grab something to eat, so I agreed. We talked a lot about Mr. Green and how his songs always find a way to connect to the soul. We ended up exchanging numbers. I didn't know that I would meet the person I had thought I would spend the rest of my life with at my favorite singer's live concert. Well, we had a very same taste when it came to music. We both loved soul and R&B. I think that was how we just clicked. A day later, he called me saying he was checking in to hear if I had arrived well at home, which was a very great gesture and so sweet of him. I was not even expecting his call anytime soon, but he did call, and I was surprised yet charmed. So he asked to see me when he comes back from his business trip. I couldn't believe that he would go to a night concert while he still had to go on a business trip. When I asked him that, he just replied by saying, I would miss everything but not AI Green's concerts, especially if they were around LA. I would rather miss my business trip flight than not to attend the Legends live concerts. I didn't expect his answer, but I understood him. So I agreed to see him when he came back, and he promised to check up on me whenever he gets time since he was going to Africa. From that day, I couldn't stop thinking about him. I mean, there was this connection that I felt when I would speak to him. His voice was like a cure to my sickness, you know. I would feel my heart beating fast and getting butterflies whenever he would call me. Was I falling for the guy? Well, I think so. I mean, who wouldn't? His voice alone would make a woman melt, especially his morning voice. I was falling in love with it every single day. We became friends. He would tell me a lot about his future plans and what kind of a woman he wanted in his life. So after a month, he came back and he kept his promise. Mind you, I had thought he was going to forget or make a lame excuse, but he didn't. Our first official meetup was great. I got to see him live during the day since the first time we met, and it was at night. And to say he was handsome would be an understatement. You wouldn't see that he was in his 40s already. He was aging so well, like fine wine. Though we would talk over video calls, but it wasn't the same as seeing him in front of me, you know. I couldn't even speak more than 3 words with him because I was so glued to his handsomeness. His perfectly shaped face, nicely trimmed mustache, perfect white teeth, and to top it all, he had deep dimples, which made him look sexier. I was really charmed. His dark caramel self was one thing I would find myself staring at him with so much admiration, especially when he smiles or laughs and his one dimple gets visible, and it turned me on. I know it sounds creepy, but I had that thing, that special thing for dark caramel skinned people with dimples, either males or females. I just find them beautiful. Especially since I was light caramel without any dimples. I lived my desires to dark caramel people that I'm used to. Anyway, our bond grew fonder each passing day. We first went on dates as friends or people who enjoyed each other's company, which went on for 3.5 months because I remember the day he told me that he was too old to be playing hide and seek, playing friends like these. He confessed his feelings for me on the 4th of July. I couldn't believe it, you know. I also had some feelings for the guy, but I got comfortable with the fact that he was not going to make any move on me. Even though we would sometimes kiss here and there, help each other intimately here and there, but I thought that was just going to be it. I mean, I somehow saw myself as a person who was not on his level or his type of person he would date or even get married to. He was too perfect, and I, on the other side, had a very bad history when it came to dating. You know, the way Mike was speaking, I was taken back and charmed. Mind you, I had just recovered from a very abusive and controlling fiancé who, I thank God every day for taking me out of that relationship because it was bad. Not like bad, but yeah, bad, because one of my past partners were very toxic and abusive. Luckily, I managed to break through it. While the other one broke off our engagement because I was a very sloppy person. I would make mistakes and sometimes do things that would jeopardize our relationship, and somehow feel like I was still in that toxic relationship. So I was somehow scared and not sure about my ex-husband, love confession. Not because I didn't feel the same way as him, but because I didn't know if I would be a good partner to him. He even told me that he wanted a life partner, meaning that person was actually looking for someone he would marry and grow old with. And I didn't think I was fit to be in that category, so I told him that I would think about his love proposal. I had a talk with my aunt, who was the one who played a role of being a parent to me ever since both of my parents passed on. My aunt assured me that nothing would happen, even though I had doubts about myself, but she told me to give myself a chance to love. A day later, I called Mike and asked for a meeting with him. Luckily, he agreed. So we met and talked. Well, more like I talked. I told him about my past failed relationships and my fears, which he actually understood because I didn't expect him to understand, but he surprised me. He told me that no one was perfect, and we all learn from our past mistakes. So in order to move on from our pasts, we have to accept them and learn from them. He said a lot of sweet words that made me believe that I could change. I mean, God had given me another chance to love, so I had to embrace it and be grateful to it. But I guess some things are just meant to be. I was just made to be alone. After our talk, we made our relationship official. We had a lot in common. The chemistry and connection was there, I fell really hard for him. He made me feel good enough. Not to mention the way he looked at me. It was like I was the only important and precious thing that existed in his world. He treated me like a queen, spoiling me like a child. Life has been great. I wouldn't say we had problems, but to me, he was my lover. And also my best friend. We talked about everything and anything, Every moment with him was never a dull moment. It was great. He used to fulfill my desires, give me everything I needed from a man. He supported, and most of all, he understood. I couldn't get him off my head. We chatted every day, and I was actually falling harder for the guy. The attention he would give me was on top of the world. He would always ask if I was still okay. He was really fussy over me in a charming way, though, and I loved the attention he gave me. We went out a lot. He introduced me to his friends and some of his business associates whenever I would accompany him to those business gala dinners, and to some of his employees, including his personal assistant that he was working with. It was truly a great moment for me. He was also everything I needed in a man, and he was very understanding and loving. So I thought I had found the one. The love of my life, but I guess I was wrong. The S*X was okay, but mostly he was a 2 times a week vanilla kind of guy. But he indulged me when I wanted to do some more adventurous things and was generally attentive to what I needed. He rarely initiated, though, which was a bummer for me. But I was so happy and lacked nothing besides the fact that he would go on business trips a lot. But he was going with me if I was available and spoiled me rotten. But look, I messed all that up and went for stones while the diamond was right in front of my eyes. Mike was everything a woman would ask for and more. He was the type of a guy that most women fantasize and dream about. Though like any relationship, we experienced our fair share of ups and downs. However, a small mistake would soon test the strength of our bond in an unexpected way. Though I still think that if some things are not meant for you, they are just not meant to be for you. And love was some of the things that were not meant for me. That was how I would console myself every day whenever I think of my past and think about how perfect my life was with Mike. But I ruined all that. All because of what? Lust, lack of affection, and greed. Because what I did is called being greedy. I was not enough and grateful for what I already had in my life. Instead, I went out and looked for something that I had thought was better, while something better was in front of my eyes. I sometimes would think, what if he leaves me someday and finds someone else better, who would be on his level, and I would be left alone to pick up the broken pieces of my fragile heart. I love my husband very much. Well, more like I still love him, but sometimes love alone is not enough. I'm not a woman who would cheat on her husband, but the way he had distanced himself from me, it made me feel like we were somehow losing connection, or the connection that we once had that disconnected. I felt like I had lost him as a husband and my child had lost him as a father. It was just too much to handle. Throughout all that was happening in my house, I was just grateful to my friend Bianca, female 34, for always being there for me and allowing me to vent to her. I really don't know what I would have done or where I would have been if she was not there. As much as she was younger than me, the advice that she would give me felt like I was taking them from my own parents. Even though Mike was not a fan of Bianca, though he had no choice but to act like he had accepted our friendship. Bianca was also married to a man 10 years older than her. Our husbands are friends and business partners, so we started getting along during a trip that was planned by our husbands, well more like their business trip, and we tagged along. Bianca and I connected, The first day when we were introduced to each other, we just clicked. I really didn't understand why my husband, or let me say my ex-husband, didn't like my friendship with Bianca because it was harmless and innocent. Or that's what I thought it was. So for many years, I had only been in a committed relationship with one person. While I cherished the love and connection we shared, I couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to explore other relationships and experiences. It was a natural curiosity that many people can relate to. I approached the topic with my partner, hoping for understanding and open-mindedness. It all started with a simple conversation. I mustered up the courage to express my desire to try being with another man. I thought my partner would understand that we could navigate this new territory together. Unfortunately, instead of an open-minded response, I was met with anger and resentment. Unfortunately, he didn't react the way I had hoped. Instead of having a calm and rational conversation, he exploded in anger. His reaction took me by surprise, and it quickly became clear that he wasn't willing to entertain the idea of me being with someone else. My partner's reaction caught me off guard. I never expected such a strong negative response. We had always prided ourselves on open communication, but this topic seemed to strike a nerve. Over the next few days, tension grew between us. He became distant and cold, and it seemed like every conversation ended in an argument. We both knew that something had changed and it was tearing us apart. I had tried to come to terms with my wrong and tried to apologize for how I had approached the situation. But I didn't know what to say and where to start apologizing because what I felt the other day was what I was still feeling. I realized that my approach may not have been the best. Instead of having an open and honest conversation, I should have taken more time to understand my partner's feelings and concerns. Perhaps there were underlying issues that I had failed to address, which was why I had decided to think of another approach that he would understand. I didn't need him to do anything. I just wanted his thoughts and advice. A few days later, I waited for my husband to cool down so I could approach the topic again. I had to wait a couple of days before I angered him again. I didn't want to take things in my own hands and go outside to get what I had desired because that would be cheating. I loved my husband. Heck, I even still love him so much. We had vowed to ourselves to always be open with one another. We believed that strong communication skills were a key to a successful marriage. Oh, and not to forget loyalty, respect, and commitment. During the day as he was at work, I got the time to prepare some romantic dinner for the two of us. I wanted to soothe his heart first before dropping the same bomb that had angered him before. Later on, he came back and I was nervous. I didn't know how he was going to take my thoughts or desires again, but I hoped for the best. I gave him water to bathe and prepared supper. I wanted everything to be perfect, you know. So when he came back from taking a bath, we had a light conversation. I knew that he had forgiven me for the first encounter when I dropped the bomb, but I had to do it again, unfortunately. So I started the conversation with the apology of how I had approached my desire situation and how much I wanted us to speak about it without arguing or fighting. The more he looked at me, showing that he was listening, the more my armpits were sweating because of the nerves. I didn't regret marrying Mike. I mean, if I didn't want to get married to him, I would have rejected his proposal or asked him to wait a bit before we got married. When I agreed to be his wife, I knew what I was putting myself into, and it was a lifetime commitment. But on another thought, I felt like I had got married way too early and I was still young. I didn't give myself any chance to live, be myself, and be like my friends, living a carefree life. I didn't give myself to be young and do young people things, but I rushed to get married. Now I found myself being stuck with so many desires that my husband couldn't deliver. So I told him everything that I was feeling, from the fact that he was no longer giving me time like he used to. He was always focused at work and on the children's home shelter. Getting his full attention was something that I would only dream about, and it stayed there, in my dreams. I opened up to him about my feelings and the fact that I was craving to try another man. After I had said that, his eyes changed from being clear to pure red. He looked enraged. I told my friend Bianca about the issues that I was facing in my marriage, and to my surprise, we were actually going through the same thing. One thing about Bianca is that she loves them younger. She loves exploring guys who are younger than her, which sometimes makes me think of the reason why he married a man who was 10 years older than her, yet her desires are for younger guys. It gave me the idea that maybe she had married Jack, Bianca's husband, for money and not love and happiness. But that wasn't my business. Bianca suggested that we go out to clubs so that we could release the tension that we had in our homes. The way things were happening at home, the tension was too thick, and I didn't want my baby to see his parents tense like how Mike and I were. I took my baby to my aunt's house that time, and I was just glad that she understood my reasoning and the tension, though she didn't know the whole truth. I couldn't tell her why my husband and I were going through some patch, because I knew that either she was going to scold me or tell me to stop and erase whatever thoughts I had, and make me pray for the foreboding behavior that I had started. So Bianca and I went out as we had planned. I have never felt so carefree and alive since forever. Bianca and I promised each other that we were just going to enjoy ourselves, do whatever that we had been longing to do, and live in the moment. I followed her advice and lived like I had never lived before. I had forgotten about my marriage crisis and the fact that I had an insecure husband. I felt young again, you know. That day, Bianca suggested that if we wanted to either have fun with someone else or explore our desires, that was our chance to experience wildlife for once. Since that day, we had started going out a lot, either to male strippers clubs or going wherever there's fun. We planned that we would be wild hogs in clubs once every month to find our true selves and live the lives that we had been desiring for so long. I knew that I should not have agreed with her, but I was no longer happy with my husband, and I really desired to at least try other men and see how they were going to make me feel. I love intimacy and those rough and wild actions that are done during either lovemaking or intimate moments, and I was not getting that on my husband. So one day, Bianca and I had started doing what we had agreed on and went to parties, clubs, etc., to explore and seek for what we had been desiring throughout our whole married lives. We planned a trip together, leaving our hubbies behind, of course, just to explore ourselves, and maybe our desires would be met by someone from another country. Maybe the kind of action that my heart desires for is somewhere outside our city or country. I had told my husband that we were going on a girls' trip and we would go for a month. I knew that he didn't want me to go because I had mentioned that I was going with Bianca. But Bianca's husband, James, convinced my husband, Mike, that he should allow me to go. Little did they know that our plan, Bianca and myself, was to cheat on them to fulfill our heart desires. I knew that if Mike was to find out about my plan with Bianca, he would make sure that I regret even saying yes when he asked me to marry him. It was not going to be nice at all, but I still went with it, forgetting that whatever happens in secret or in the dark always finds its way to the light. So Bianca and I decided to visit Dubai because we fell in love with it. Unfortunately, the last time we went there, we were going with our partners, so we told ourselves that we will go back alone when we get a chance. So as we were in Dubai, we went to this club and it was booming. We even found friends when we got there. Everyone was so welcoming and very nice. I knew that we would enjoy our vacation in the United Arab Emirate country. The group of friends that we had found there were actually there to celebrate one of their friends' birthday party. So they asked us to join them. Some of them were going with their girlfriends, while others were going alone. I missed Mike so much, but I couldn't let him and his issues ruin my month getaway or vacation, so I pushed everything back and lived in the moment. I told myself that whatever that I was doing and will still have to do, I would be doing it for myself and my heart desires and my happiness. That night of our second day in Dubai, I had too many drinks and I was feeling carefree and silly, and before I knew it, I was dancing on the table, singing at the top of my lungs. The guys were laughing and cheering me on, and I loved the attention I was getting. I was letting my wild and happy self loose a little. I would even kiss some guys here and there while Bianca was just sticking to one guy that was there. As much as we knew that our actions were wrong, but we didn't want to accept that, and we told, or let me say we lied to ourselves so bad to a point that we became nonchalant and ignorant and didn't even think about the consequences that we would face for what we did. We just lived in a moment, you know. As I was busy dancing and having fun, I saw this guy by the bar of the club that we were in. He had piercing blue eyes and a charming smile. He was standing at the bar, watching me with interest, and I couldn't help but feel drawn to him. I know it was wrong, but I couldn't resist. He kept looking at me with his sexy eyes. I decided to stop dancing and catch my breath, so I went to the bar to get water because I was too sloshed. He came over to the side where I was getting my cold water, and he introduced himself as Michael. He was even more charming when you looked at him closer. I didn't believe him because I knew myself that when it came to dancing, I had 2 left feet, but I managed to make a plan and move my body whenever I am in the moment or tipsy or drunk. I don't remember much of what we talked about, but I do remember feeling alive and carefree for the first time in months. It was exhilarating, and I couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to be with Alex. But as soon as the thought crossed my mind, I felt a pang of guilt. I knew I was with Alex, and I loved him. It was just that he was going through some things. I don't remember much of what went down. You know, whenever I complained to him about missing him, he would always remind me that he was doing what he was doing for us so we could spend our lives together, and that everything is over his control. Some of the things he had said, I didn't understand them, like he was doing whatever he was doing for us. My mind kept asking that if he didn't date me or became friends with me on that festival or show that we were in 5 years ago, Who would he tell those excuses because we met at the concert that was even out of the city that I lived in? Yes, he was good at what he does, and he was a very focused person when it comes to his business, but I needed his 1 hour spending time with him. We would fight a lot about his time management and the lack of attention, but I knew that love was there. I would be lying if I said Mike loved me less. That guy loved me. He loved me for me, you know. He never judged me or looked down on me because I was coming from a lower class than him. Instead, he would always give me guidance and motivation to work hard so I can live the dream that I had, which is to make myself happy at all times and make sure to prioritize myself and know my worth. Mike and I really loved each other, but it was never enough. I was not getting enough of what I had desired. I love my man so much. Heck, I still love him so much, and I knew he loved me. But when it came to time and its management, he was failing dismally. I didn't know if he was doing all that to please his ego or himself, or I don't know how I can even put it, but what he was doing would push any woman in his life away because it was sickening and cannot be tolerated. Even in the bedroom, he was slacking, which made me think that my husband had maybe reached his menopause and his tool was no longer working like before. I mean, the man was 10 years older than me, so it was possible. The party was a blast. It was epic to a point that I didn't even think about Mike. I had forgotten that he even existed. I had so much fun. So there were some guys that were there. Apparently, they had come to Dubai for a vacation since one of their friends and his girlfriend were sharing a birth month. Everyone was enjoying themselves at the party, and the girls didn't have any problem. They had such good company and a vibe. Other guys kept coming, and all of a sudden we were so many, like maybe 15 or 20. That time my husband was not available, so why not spend the night with the strangers because we were having so much fun? Did I commit a crime for doing that? The guy suggested that we go to the nearest hotel to continue with the party. I didn't have a problem moving the party with them to the hotel. When we got to the hotel, the party continued and we had so much fun. I noticed a familiar face in that hotel, and I think it was one of Mike's friends or employees or whatever. But I knew that he looked pretty much familiar even though I was really out of it. But I wouldn't have mistaken that face no matter how intoxicated I was. The party went on till the following day. Everyone was out of it. But something happened that night and I do not remember it because I was really blackouted. One thing I remember was when we were playing spin the bottle to increase the fun, and I would kiss or hand job the guys that I was pointed with. I was avoiding to be more intoxicated, and Bianca, on another hand, had disappeared with some guy. The following morning, I woke up hoping that I would see my friends so we could all go home together. But to my surprise, I woke up with 3 strangers in bed. The worst part was that these strangers were butt naked. I panicked thinking I had been molested, but when I touched myself, it showed that nothing was done to me. Like no intimacy was done, but I had a couple of hickeys on my neck and boobs. Our trip came to an end, and I would say that we had fulfilled all our desires with my friend. I had missed home, you know, and my heart yearned for my husband. I was tired of changing men like I was changing underwear. Another thing, there was a day when I couldn't find Bianca anywhere. When I say anywhere, I mean the whole city that we were visiting. You know when you are scared and panicky, you sometimes do things without thinking. James, Bianca's husband, had given me his business card and made me swear to look after his precious wife because she meant a lot to him. You know, when desperate times called for desperate measures. I found myself calling James and told him what had happened, but obviously I lied about the men's cases and the reason for us to be in Dubai. I didn't even think about the consequences that would take place if our husbands were to find out about our abomination, but I was stressed and didn't know what to do. James used his connections to locate Bianca's whereabouts. As I was about to call James again and find out if he had any progress in finding Bianca, my friend came to the B&B that we had booked in. She came in looking fresh and happy. Mind you, that time I had been so stressed about her, but she came back looking fine and glowing. I was so angry at her because we had to cover our flights back to Canada. I then asked her to tell me where she was. You know when you are anticipating hearing a juicy story, and you shift your focus to that storyteller. As Bianca was about to start her story, we received text messages. And I received a text message from Mike while she received a call from James. I don't know how Mike found out about everything that was going down in Dubai, but I got a very long text, more like an essay text. He was telling me that he knew the evilness and abomination that I had done. He was fuming in that text to a point that on some line I got really confused about the things he was saying. What took my attention was when he mentioned that when I get home I won't find him, but I had to bear in mind that he would not let me go free like that after breaking my wedding vows in his heart. He then wrote so many insults, mind you, that time I'm reading the text, and my hands were shaking, tears streaming down my face. When I got home, I found everything gone. from his clothes, gadgets, including the furniture that he had bought. I knew there and then that I had messed up a good thing. I found the house literally empty with a piece of paper written, "You will regret ever saying yes to my marriage proposal, and I would live happily ever after knowing that I had destroyed you after you had destroyed the only precious thing that we had." A day later, I received divorce papers and a letter that stated that he was taking full responsibility for our baby. A week later, I received a call from Bianca telling me that she was hospitalized because her husband had taken out all his anger on her and told me to check my Twitter. My heart bumped abnormally in the mention of Twitter because I didn't know what was trending. So I logged on to my Twitter account and I saw lots of videos of me and Bianca in Dubai. I was actually the one who was showing more, even the parts where I was hand-making the guys. But what caught my eyes was that I saw Bianca commenting on those videos, painting me as the Queen of Babylon. I just couldn't believe it, you know. My heart was shuddered to a point that I stayed indoors in an empty house with only a bed and cupboards, and a fridge. I wanted to just disappear from the face of the earth and never be found. I didn't know how I would face the world after the disgusting revelations of myself while I was married. Even today, Mike is still making threats and making sure that my life is a living hell. He makes sure to remind me that he has made me the person I am, and he would destroy me at any time. I regret everything you know. I don't even know how I would look at my aunt after what I had done, destroying my marriage. My life just took a drastic turn within a split second. It was supposed to be a great vacation in Dubai with my friend, and it all turned out to be the worst nightmare. There was nothing else to do either than accepting Mike's wrath and revenge. I messed up real bad. I really don't know what to do. I am stuck here and scared. What should I do because I want to go out and maybe find some psychological help? But I'm just scared. Please help me. I'm desperate. I'm